Discover the incredible journey of an Apache who gave up his farms for a son and found unexpected joy. Elijah had spent his life cultivating the arid land, turning barren soil into a lush garden that fed both his family and community. The vibrant sunsets over the Arizona plains felt like a blessing, their hues painting the world with endless possibility. At 50, he had molded his two sons' futures with grit and grace. He taught them the value of hard work, integrity, and independence. But as summer heat shimmered above the fields, everything changed with the sudden return of his estranged youngest son, Mateo. Matt's arrival came with the weight of a troubled heart. He stepped off the dusty bus, looking out of place in the small town. His clothes bore the grit of city life, and his eyes told the stories of crushed dreams and economic disparity. Elijah felt a tightness in his chest as the past crashed into the present. He remembered the boy who had once followed him around the farm, but the man before him seemed lost. "Dad," Mateo's voice trembled, breaking the stillness of the evening air. "I've come back." The townsfolk watched from a distance, whispers swirling like the dust in the dry wind. It felt like everyone was holding their breath, waiting for the reunion, a moment of hope tangled with years of silence. Elijah wrestled with his emotions, wondering if everything he sacrificed hours in the sun, seeds planted, lessons taught was enough to bridge this gap. Could he mend the bonds they forged in those golden years? As weeks passed, the tension thickened. Elijah and Mateo's connection grew awkward, woven with hesitation. Andrew, the older son, felt abandoned amidst the emotional tug-of-war. He watched his father hover protectively over Mateo, a hurt boiling inside him. Why was their family's reunion drowned out by the shadows of neglect? Each day, he battled feelings of resentment. He had dedicated his life to helping on the farm and now felt as if he was losing his place in his father's heart. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The summer days swayed by, a rhythmic dance of sun and shade, and Elijah faced an unexpected clarity. He had nurtured fields of crops, but now he needed to champion Mateo's dreams. With a heavy heart, he decided to gamble the year's harvest, risking it all for a chance to reignite his son's passion. He watched Mateo's eyes flicker with uncertain hope, igniting a confrontation that shook their family to its core. As they argued beneath the fiery sunset, their voices echoed through the valley, a cacophony of clashing values. Would love survive the conflict? Just when it seemed everything could shatter, Mateo revealed a hidden talent, a captivating musical gift that could light a path forward for all of them. Elijah stood there in the fading light, absorbing the weight of his choices. Love and loss swirled around him, testing the very essence of his identity and commitments. The horizon stretched wide, promising both heartache and healing. Could he guide his lost son back home, creating a foundation anew? As night fell, an urgent question lingered in the air. Could this summer lead to the rebirth of their family? Elijah awoke the next morning to a silence that felt heavy. The sun shone through the window, casting stripes of light across the wooden floor. He stretched and looked outside, where the fields lay still, as if holding their breath. Last night's argument with Mateo still echoed in his mind. He could feel that familiar tightness in his chest, a mix of hope and fear. He longed for connection but feared the pain that might come with it. As the morning unfolded, the familiar routine beckoned. Andrew was already out in the fields, his brow furrowed in concentration. Elijah grabbed his hat and joined him, eager to focus his mind on the work. The rhythmic sound of their shovels digging into the earth seemed to drown out the chaos of emotions swirling inside him. "Dad, do you think Mateo will stick around?" Andrew asked between breaths, breaking the silence. Elijah paused. "I hope so, son." His voice was softer than he intended. "He just needs time to adjust, to heal." Andrew lowered his gaze, and Elijah caught a glimpse of the hurt in his son's eyes. "But what about me? I'm right here, and he comes back and takes everything." Andrew snapped, frustration bubbling to the surface. The heart is complicated, Elijah said gently. We need to figure out how to be a family again. For a moment, the weight of their shared struggle hung in the air. Andrew nodded slowly, as if absorbing these words, but doubt still lingered. They returned to work in silence, the sun climbing higher, warming the fields that held both their labor and dreams. Later that day, after the sun had set and the sky turned to hues of purple, Elijah found Mateo sitting on the porch with his guitar. The sound was new and raw, filled with a bittersweet longing that tugged at Elijah's heart. After a fleeting moment of hesitation, he stepped forward, taking the wooden steps one by one until he was seated beside his son. "What are you playing?" he asked, genuinely curious. "It's just something I wrote," Mateo replied, his eyes flickering with a mix of pride and vulnerability. He strummed again, the notes resonating in the evening air like whispers of lost dreams. Elijah felt his heart soften. This was his boy, this music. This passion was the essence of Mateo that he had nearly forgotten. Elijah watched as Mateo poured his emotions into the melody, playing with increasing confidence. Then, just as suddenly as it began, Mateo stopped, his face reflecting both pride in sharing a piece of himself and fear of judgment. "I don't know if it's any good," he admitted, almost shyly. Elijah placed a hand on his shoulder. "It's beautiful. You have a gift." He looked into Mateo's eyes, searching for a connection as strong as the one they once had. In that moment, the distance felt smaller. But just as he began to hope again, a shadow crossed Mateo's face. "Dad, what if it's too late? What if I'm not the person you wanted me to be?" Elijah felt an ache in his chest. "You're my son, and that's all I've ever wanted," he said, emotion thick in his voice. "You don't have to be anything else." As silent tears began to form in Mateo's eyes, the weight of their shared history pressed down on them both. In that intense moment, could they find a way to bridge the gaps of pain, resentment, and misunderstanding? As the twilight deepened, the air crackled with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. Elijah realized they stood on the brink of something transformative. Would this music lead them to salvation, or would it unearth buried wounds? The night unfolded quietly, but inside Elijah's heart, a storm gathered. It was clear that the journey ahead held even more challenges. With uncertain hope, he wondered, would they find their way back to each other, or would the past's shadows continue to haunt them? It was a question that lingered in the cool night air, waiting for answers. The dawn came slowly the next day. A gentle light crept into the house, illuminating the quiet corners and reminding Elijah of the warmth that the sun could bring. He took a deep breath, trying to shake off the heaviness of last night's conversation. Mateo's words still echoed in his mind, each syllable a reminder of the chasm they needed to cross. After breakfast, Elijah gathered Andrew and Mateo in the living room. He sensed an urgency to address everything that lay between them. As they settled on the worn-out couch, Elijah's heart raced. "We need to talk," he said, his gaze shifting between the two of them. Mateo fidgeted. He looked out the window, avoiding eye contact. Andrew mirrored his unease, his fingers fidgeting with a frayed edge on the couch. The tension in the room was palpable. "What do you want to talk about?" Mateo finally asked, voice barely above a whisper. "About us," Elijah replied, searching for the right words. "About our family." He could feel the weight of those words hanging in the air, a precarious balance of hope and fear. Andrew sighed. "I don't want to share my dad. It's not fair," he blurted, bitterness heightening the tension. "He was mine first." Elijah felt the sting of Andrew's words. "I know it's hard, but Mateo is trying to be here. We all need to figure this out together." He turned to Mateo, whose eyes seemed a mix of regret and determination. "You came back for a reason, didn't you?" "Yes," Mateo replied, his voice steadier. "I need to understand what happened to me, to us, to everything." He took a deep breath before continuing. "I didn't just leave because of the farm. I was scared, Dad. I let my fears dictate my choices." Elijah nodded, feeling a flicker of empathy. "I understand. We all have fears. But running away doesn't change anything. We need to face them together." Andrew crossed his arms defiantly, but there was a flicker of vulnerability in his expression. "But what if it doesn't work? What if we just make things worse?" "Then we try again," Elijah said, his voice firm yet gentle. "We keep trying, because that's what families do. They fight, they fall, and most importantly, they rise again together. For a moment, silence enveloped the room. The air felt charged. Mateo's expression shifted, a spark of understanding forming. I want to be part of our family, but I need your help. I don't know how to be here. Neither do I, Andrew admitted, his voice cracking. But I'm willing to try. Elijah felt his heart swell with hope. They were inching closer, facing their fears together as a family. Let us start small. Maybe we can work on this farm together. Something that makes sense to all of us. Mateo nodded slowly. I would like that. Andrew uncrossed his arms, looking between them. Yeah, and maybe you can teach me some of that guitar stuff. Both Elijah and Mateo shared a smile, a small, fragile bond beginning to take shape. It was an invitation. Of course, Mateo replied, his face lighting up. How about we make it a family thing? We could have play sessions after work. As they moved through the awkward beginnings of a new chapter, a familiar song slipped from Mateo's lips. It was off-key, but filled with raw emotion. Elijah felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes. This was the kind of music that spoke of healing, a melody of hope. But as laughter echoed and fragile connections began to solidify, a distant rumble of thunder warned of an oncoming storm. Is that thunder? Andrew asked, peering out the window. Elijah knew it wasn't just the weather. It was the storm of unresolved issues still brewing beneath the surface. With uncertainty thick in the air, he wondered, would this storm forge them into a stronger family, or would it tear them apart again? The clouds rolled in, casting shadows over their tentative reunion. Every heartbeat reminded him of the work they still had ahead. As the first raindrops fell against the windows, one thought loomed. What lay ahead could either shatter their fragile peace or lead to something beautiful. Would this be a moment of transformation or another chance to falter? Elijah stood by the window, staring at the approaching storm. The winds picked up, rattling the old wooden frame of the house. He felt the tension in his chest tighten. They had opened up, shared their fears, but the challenges ahead felt insurmountable. For now, this moment was fragile, and nature seemed to echo their insecurities. Maybe we should do something while we can, Mateo suggested, breaking the silence. Like work on that old barn before the rain hits. Andrew perked up. Yeah, I want to help. The spark of enthusiasm in his voice surprised Elijah. It was a welcome change from the anxiety that had clouded the entire morning. All right, let us gather some tools, Elijah said, feeling a rush of determination. But we need to be careful. I don't want anyone getting hurt. The idea of working together lightened the air, a much-needed distraction from the storm that brewed outside and inside their hearts. As they collected tools from the garage, Elijah felt a glimmer of optimism. They headed out, the fresh scent of rain stirring in the air, mingling with the smell of dust and wood. Mateo took the lead, guiding Andrew as they walked towards the barn. Elijah followed behind, heart swelling with the sight of them together, 2 generations connecting over the same worn earth. Mateo's confidence began to shine as he rose to the challenge, directing Andrew to carry sheets of wood. Careful with those. They might not look like much, but they're heavy. Andrew laughed, the sound ringing through the air like chimes before a storm. I got it. You're not the only one who has muscles, you know? Seeing Andrew smile was a soothing balm to Elijah's soul. They were moving forward, and a sense of purpose filled the space. He picked up a hammer, getting into the rhythm of it all. The work felt grounding, and with each strike, his anxieties began to chip away, revealing a sense of hope beneath. They settled into the labor of repairing the barn, a task that had been sorely neglected. Mateo and Andrew's banter brought warmth to the cool, overcast afternoon. For a moment, they felt like a real family. Elijah stepped back, taking it all in. The unusual but beautiful sight of his boy and Mateo, sharing stories, sharing laughter. But then, a loud crack of thunder shattered the gentleness of the afternoon. The sky opened up, pouring rain in heavy sheets. Damn, we better hurry. Mateo shouted over the sudden roar. They raced to finish the last of what they could, hands moving quickly, urgency amplifying their energy. Just as they secured the final plank, an unexpected flash of lightning lit up the sky, illuminating the worry on their faces. Let us get inside, Elijah called, gesturing for them to rush back to the house. They dashed across the muddy ground, laughter mixed with the adrenaline of the storm. Once inside, they shook off the rain, panting with exhaustion, but their spirits were lifted. That was fun. Andrew exclaimed, excitement swirling in his eyes. Elijah's heart nodded in agreement. It was more than I expected. Mateo seemed to absorb the moment, drawing strength from their collective energy. I didn't think I could feel this kind of joy again. Thank you. Both of you. Before he could finish his sentence, another crack of thunder boomed with a ferocity that sent shivers down their spines. Elijah's smile faltered. A sense of unease flickered back into the room, accompanied by a looming feeling that despite their success, there were deeper issues still lurking, threatening to rain on their parade. As they sat in the living room, the storm raged on outside, a reminder of the turbulence still within. What if this just brings up more problems? Andrew's voice broke the momentary silence, vulnerability creeping back in. Elijah exchanged glances with Mateo. The journey they embarked on was just beginning, and the next storm, internal or external, awaited them. And within that looming uncertainty, another question hovered over them. Could they face whatever was coming together, or would the past pull them apart again? Elijah sat back, feeling the weight of Andrew's words. The air hung heavy, not just with the storm outside, but with unresolved tensions that seemed to seep from the walls. He looked over at Mateo, who now wore a mask of contemplation, his brow furrowing as if he was sifting through memories best left undisturbed. Sometimes, the storm before the calm is the hardest part, Mateo finally said, his voice low. It's like nature's way of reminding us that we can't control everything. Andrew frowned. What do you mean? Are we just supposed to sit here and hope everything magically gets better? No, Mateo replied softly. We have to face what is haunting us. It won't go away on its own, but we can help each other through it. Elijah felt the intensity of that confession resonate deeply. He was no stranger to darkness, having navigated his own feelings of inadequacy ever since his wife passed. He had tried to shield Andrew from those pains. The idea of pulling back the curtain on their fears felt monumental, but something about this moment, about Mateo's honesty, felt like a chance to finally confront the shadows. Maybe we can start by talking about our feelings? Elijah suggested, hesitating as he spoke. What scares you the most, Andrew? Andrew crossed his arms, his youthful confidence momentarily faltering. I guess I worry that everything is going to change. Like, what if you and Mateo don't get along? What if we lose each other again? It feels too uncertain. The words hung in the room like the moisture in the air, palpable and real. Elijah's heart ached at the rawness of Andrew's fears. They were fears he had carried himself, but had never truly let Andrew see. You're not going to lose us, Mateo assured him, leaning forward earnestly. We're building something new together. It's not going to be easy, but we'll be here to catch each other when we fall. A crack of thunder boomed again, rattling the windows, but in that moment, the sound felt like an affirmation rather than a threat. Elijah could see Andrew relax slightly, absorbing the reassurance. Can I tell you both something? Andrew asked cautiously. It's hard for me to trust, especially with everything that has happened. Elijah felt a flicker of hope. That's okay. Trust takes time. We can all work on it together. Yeah, Mateo interjected, a spark of motivation igniting in his eyes. We're all in this. Each of us has a piece of the puzzle. We just need to figure out how they fit. A soft smile crept up on Elijah's face, and it felt like the first rays of sunlight breaking through the heavy clouds. Let us promise to keep talking, no matter how hard it gets. We owe it to each other. Andrew nodded vigorously, the tension of the moment beginning to ease, thawing the ice built over years of uncertainty. The storm outside raged on, but cracks of light appeared in their hearts, guiding them toward understanding. That as they exchanged affirming glances, another rumble of thunder rolled in the distance. But instead of fear, Elijah felt a newfound sense of resilience. No storm lasts forever, he said, almost to himself. Feeling the words wrap around their collective resolve, they were beginning to step into the unknown, grasping onto hope like a lifeline. But even as they made this breakthrough, Elijah's heart raced with an unsettling thought. What if the storm brewing inside them was just the beginning? Before they could dwell on uncertainties, a loud bang from the kitchen interrupted their moment, startling them. Elijah's stomach dropped. What else awaited them hidden in the shadows of this storm? Elijah's heart raced as silence enveloped the room, the sudden noise echoing loudly in his ears. He exchanged worried glances with Mateo and Andrew, who both looked equally stunned. What was that? Andrew whispered, pulling slightly away from the table as if distancing himself from the unknown. Maybe a branch fell? Mateo offered, though the uncertainty in his voice betrayed his attempt to soothe the group. Elijah felt a pull in his gut. They were not going to find comfort in assumptions anymore. I'll check, Elijah said, forcing himself to move towards the kitchen, every step hesitant and weighed down with dread. The storm outside hammered against the windows, and each clap of thunder felt like it was reverberating through him. It had already felt so difficult to confront the emotional storms within them. Was the outside one merely a reflection of the chaos brewing inside? The kitchen door creaked as Elijah pushed it open. He braced himself for the sight that awaited. It was darker here, the heavy rain casting twisted shadows against the walls. He fumbled for the light switch, and the dim bulb flickered on, illuminating a scene both oddly mundane and off-kilter at once. The countertop was cluttered with pots, dishes stacked precariously, but what caught his eye was the open pantry door. A shelf had collapsed, sending jars tumbling down like an avalanche of glass and contents. Canned tomatoes, pickles, everything was strewn across the floor, and Elijah's mind raced, a whirlwind of thoughts colliding as he analyzed the chaos. Seriously? He muttered to himself. Great, just what they needed. More mess in a house filled with tension and unresolved feelings. Mateo and Andrew joined him, their expressions shifting from worry to disbelief. It's just stuff, Andrew said, trying to inject levity into the situation, but the laughter didn't escape his lips. Instead, they all fell into silence, overwhelmed by the moment's absurdity. Elijah knelt down, grabbing a jar and setting it aside. Let us clean this up, he said, trying to anchor the situation before turmoil took root again. As they started picking up the pieces, Mateo spoke up, breaking the quiet. It's like life, isn't it? He mused, picking up a jar of olives that had rolled under the sink. Everything can fall apart in an instant. We just have to gather the pieces and make sense of it. Andrew sighed, but what if we can't? What if it just keeps falling? Elijah paused, letting the words hang in the air. The kitchen felt like a fragile space, one where both tears and laughter mingled tenderly. We'll figure it out together, he insisted, tightening the grip on his resolve. As they worked, Elijah felt a shift. The act of cleaning together felt like a metaphor for their lives. They were gathering the pieces, both seen and hidden, and slowly stitching together a future. With each broken jar, he was reminded of their past, each piece a fragment of pain but also of possibility. They were messy, but they were still standing. Suddenly, a loud sound echoed from the living room, pulling them from their tasks. This noise was different, a more ominous creak of the house settling or something else. What now? Andrew's voice rose an octave. Elijah's stomach twisted again, anxiety creeping in like vines on old trees. They had just started to open their hearts, but still so much lay unspoken, lurking in the shadows. Let us go check, Mateo urged, standing in solidarity with them. As they stepped into the living room, eyes darting around, Elijah's heart thudded loudly in his chest. They had faced many storms together, and just as they had begun to pick up the pieces of their emotions, a new challenge brewed. What awaited them in this house filled with shadows? In the quiet, a heavier, more profound truth felt imminent. Would they be ready to confront what lurked ahead? Elijah took a deep breath as he entered the living room, its dim light clashing with the storm outside. The rain lashed against the window panes like angry fingers, and the shadows felt deeper with each clap of thunder. He scanned the room, heart racing, bracing for whatever lay ahead. What was that noise? Andrew whispered, anxiety bubbling beneath the surface of his voice. I don't know, Mateo replied, his brow furrowed with concern. Maybe just the wind? Elijah felt a twinge of doubt. Wind. It felt much heavier. It felt like dread trying to seep under his skin. Let us just look around, he urged, hoping to mask his own growing fears. As they moved farther into the room, a shape caught Elijah's attention. The old rocking chair by the window creaked, a slow, eerie sway that seemed to beckon him. He stepped closer, the shadows around it dancing wildly. Did anyone leave this chair rocking? He asked, eyeing Andrew and Mateo. Both shook their heads, confusion pooling in their expressions. It was unsettling, the way the chair moved without touch. Suddenly, a loud crack of thunder shattered the night, causing them to jump. Elijah reflexively grabbed the armrest of the chair, grounding himself. Okay, this is getting weird, Andrew said. His eyes were wide, reflecting both fear and a hint of thrill. Yeah, let us just keep moving, Mateo suggested, though his voice wavered. They made their way through the house, checking every corner as the storm raged on outside. Every sound felt magnified, every shadow menacing in its anonymity. In the back of his mind, Elijah couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. It was a notion straight from a horror film, yet here they were, together, confronting it in the flesh. They paused in the hallway, all three staring at a picture hung slightly askew. It was a photo of the three of them from a happier time, smiles captured in a moment that felt so distant now. What happened to us? Elijah whispered, emotion choking his voice. We were supposed to be the ones living life to the fullest. Andrew shifted uneasily. Things changed. We changed. Elijah felt the weight of those words. They had entered this storm together, but had they lost sight of each other? The fear of the unknown was quickly morphing into a fear of themselves, their emotions, their unspoken truth. Whatever it is, we can handle it, right? Elijah said, needing reassurance. Together, the three of them nodded, a fragile sense of solidarity binding them. But as they moved, the unsettling energy in the house seemed to pulse around them. Then, without warning, the lights flickered, plunging them into darkness for a heartbeat before flickering back to life. Except now, a new feeling hung heavy in the air, an unsettling presence that had definitely not been there before. Elijah, Mateo said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't think it's just the storm anymore. Their eyes met, the quiet understanding igniting a deep dread. This was no longer just a house rattled by storms. Something stirred within its walls, something old and unrelenting. In the darkness, tears stung Elijah's eyes. Ready or not, whatever's in this house, we are facing it together, he whispered, steeling himself. They took a step forward. A loud crash followed by an otherworldly wail echoed through the air, sending shivers down their spines. Do you hear that? Andrew stammered, eyes darting wildly around the room. What if we aren't ready? Mateo's voice trembled, barely concealing his own fear. Elijah took a deep breath, a wave of resolve surging through him. They had to uncover the truth hidden in the shadows. And just then, from the corner of his eye, a flicker of movement caught his attention. An apparition, hazy and translucent, glided across the room, illuminating the darkest corners of their uncertainty. Something's here, Elijah murmured, feeling every heartbeat thrum in his chest. What awaited them was unknown, but one thing was clear: they were about to confront a truth that could shatter everything they once held dear. Elijah's heart raced as he stared at the shimmering figure. It drifted closer, its form shifting unnaturally with wisps of shadow curling around it like smoke. A chill swept through the room, and he felt his hands tremble at his sides. Do you see it? Mateo whispered, his voice laced with both awe and terror. Andrew's mouth opened, forming a wordless gasp. Elijah nodded slowly, fear coiling in his gut. What do you want? He called out, his voice steadying despite the chaos within. His eyes remained fixed on the figure, searching for any hint of familiarity. Was it someone they knew? Or something else entirely? The apparition hovered. Its eyes, if they could be called such, bore into him with a depth that felt almost invasive. He could feel the weight of history pressing down as if the air around them thickened. Maybe it wants to communicate, Andrew suggested, inching slightly to Elijah's side. We should. Before he could finish, the figure twisted in the air, causing Elijah to flinch. Then, in an eerie whisper that echoed through the room like the sound of rustling leaves, it spoke. You seek the truth, but the truth often brings more questions. The voice, though soft and melodic, sent shivers down Elijah's spine. He exchanged quick glances with his friends, his mind racing to comprehend the words. What kind of truth? Elijah asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The spirit's form shifted once more, and images began swirling around it, flashes of laughter, memories of joy, and then, darker moments filled with anger and betrayal. Each memory played out like a movie, fragments intertwining like vines. It was confusing, chaotic, yet undeniably familiar. Your past holds the key, the apparition continued, its tone echoing a melancholic sadness. What binds you now is the very thing that once set you free. You cannot move forward without confronting what you've left behind. Andrew frowned. What does that mean? We're not sure. Mateo interrupted, his eyes wide in disbelief as the images twisted into scenes of their childhood. They saw themselves running wild, carefree, jumping into the lake, and laughter echoing in the summer sun. Elijah's gut twisted painfully. They were looking at their former selves, a version of happiness that felt like an eternity ago. What happened to us? Elijah thought aloud, tears prickling the back of his eyes. The spirit's form wavered, and it gestured toward the nostalgic scene playing out before them. All of this once lost to fear, to choices made. You're still those children. Remember what united you. With that, the vision began to dissolve, fading into the darkness. But one last image glimmered brightly before vanishing, the three of them standing together, arms slung over each other's shoulders, triumphant. The room fell silent, and the frieze of the apparition hung in the air like a forgotten song. The shadows began to retract, and the atmosphere lifted just slightly. What if we really haven't lost it all? Elijah murmured, his heart pounding. Mateo looked at both of them. Hope flickered in his eyes despite the residue of fear. We can find it again, can't we? Those moments. Andrew nodded slowly. It's going to take work. But we have to face it together, don't we? Elijah met the gaze of his friends, the weight of the moment settling in. It wasn't just about ghosts haunting the house. It was about the ghosts of their past, of their friendship, and the truths they each needed to face within themselves. Yeah, he said, determination lacing his words. Together. Just then, the lights flickered again violently, and with a sudden crash, a picture frame fell off the wall, shattering on the floor. What was that? Mateo jumped back, eyes wide. Elijah's breath caught. Whatever it was, it's not over yet. Are we ready to keep going? A new tension filled the air, the question hanging like a dark cloud. They had taken the first step towards facing the truth, but the journey ahead felt more daunting than ever. With their hearts pounding, they stepped toward the darkness, unaware of what awaited them next. Would they find what they were truly searching for? Or would the house reveal secrets too painful to bear? The room remained eerily quiet as they stared into the dimness that threatened to swallow them whole. Elijah took a deep breath, trying to muster the courage that felt so distant moments before. I guess we have to figure out what that means, he said, his voice echoing softly against the walls. What do we do first? Mateo asked, a mix of fear and determination etched across his face. Elijah's eyes darted around the room. He felt like they were being watched not just by the spirit, but by the memories that left an imprint in every corner. They had to start somewhere. The basement, he declared, uncertainty slipping into his voice. If whatever's haunting us is tied to our past, maybe it's connected to what's down there. Andrew's brow furrowed. Are you crazy? That's where we found the old stuff. We can't go back down there. Mateo nodded, his voice wavering. Yeah, I mean, we've seen enough already. Look, I know it's terrifying, Elijah said, trying to steady his friends' racing hearts with his resolve. But if the spirit wants us to confront our past, then we have to. Maybe it's the final piece we need to figure this whole thing out. With a reluctant nod, Mateo stepped forward. All right, together then. Andrew sighed, but joined the two of them. Just stay close, okay? They crept towards the basement door, the wood creaking underfoot like it was alive. The air grew colder as they descended into the gloom. Each step felt heavier, the darkness wrapping around them as if they were entering an entirely different world. The faint light of their flashlights danced on the rusty tools and stacks of faded boxes. Dust motes swirled in the beams, and with every scrape of metal or rustle of cardboard, Elijah felt the past press closer. He could almost hear echoes of laughter, yet the past felt tainted by the weight of their shared pain. Over there, Elijah pointed to a corner where an old trunk lay half open. A tattered blanket hung over its edge, inviting and foreboding both at once. Let us see what's inside. As they approached, something in the air shifted. The weight of their memories felt thicker, almost suffocating. Elijah knelt beside the trunk and pulled the blanket away, revealing old photographs and forgotten toys. The sorrow and nostalgia washed over him like a wave as he sifted through the items. Look, Mateo exclaimed, pulling out a small wooden car. It was painted in bright red and blue, the colors slightly chipped, but the memories it contained flawless. We used to play with this all the time. Andrew's eyes softened as he took a photo from the trunk. This was the day we built that tree fort. Remember how proud we were? His voice broke with emotion. The memories manifested in a glowing warmth that contrasted the hostile shadows around them. They all took a moment, nostalgia washing over them like a warm summer day. But the moment dissipated quickly, replaced by the haunting echo of their shared history. What good does this do us? Andrew asked quietly, his eyes filled with uncertainty. We can't just keep looking back. Elijah glanced at Mateo, then back at Andrew. It's not just about looking back. We need closure. We haven't spoken about what really happened that summer. The fights, the betrayals. The weight of his words lingered, and silence hung in the air. Mateo swallowed hard. You mean, what tore us apart? We have to face it, Elijah insisted, desperation filling his voice. We need to talk it out. Remember why we became friends in the first place. As they stood there, the shadows coiling tighter around them, the door creaked behind them. A distant rumble resonated, making them all freeze. What was that? Mateo whispered, panic creeping back into his voice. Elijah felt his heart race again. Answers were lurking, but staying just out of reach. I don't know, but we have to keep going. We're so close, but as the darkness thickened, Elijah couldn't shake off the feeling that something far more significant awaited them both within the trunk and in the shadows, casting doubt over their hearts. What secrets lay ahead, and would they have the strength to confront what they found? They stood on the threshold of their past, ready to dive in, unaware that the truth would soon take them to places they never anticipated. What awaited them in the darkness? Would they find healing, or would the shadows consume them whole? As Elijah, Mateo, and Andrew stood in the dimly lit basement, the air heavy with unspoken emotions, they took a collective breath. The memories laid out before them felt like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, each moment sparkling with joy but tinged with pain. The moment thrummed with potential, a chance for healing, transformation, and understanding. Elijah glanced down at the trunk, a world of memories within it, beckoning them forward. It's time, he said, pulling out an old scrapbook. Flipping through its pages, he paused at a photograph of the three of them at the lake, laughter caught in frozen frames. Remember this day? He asked, his voice almost cracking. We were unstoppable then. Andrew chuckled, tension easing for the first time. Yeah, we thought we'd rule the world. But the shadow of reality loomed. Then things fell apart. Silence settled among them like the dust swirling in the air. Mateo broke it, his voice trembling. Do you think we can ever get back there? Elijah felt the gravity of the question. We can't go back, but we can start anew. Mateo reached in and pulled out a worn-out toy truck. I love this thing. We spent hours racing it while we dreamed big. He smiled, nostalgia filling the corners of his heart before it faded again, the weight of what had come after stifling the joy. And then I left. Andrew wrapped his arms around himself, the memories swelling again with unshed regret. You didn't just leave, Mateo. You let us down. I felt like we were family, and then you vanished. Believe me, I know. Mateo's eyes glistened with unspilled tears. I was scared and ashamed. I thought leaving would make it easier for everyone. Easier? Andrew scoffed, his frustration bubbling to the surface. It only made it worse. You let our family break apart. Elijah intervened, sensing the conversation spiraling. This isn't just on Mateo. We all carried the weight of our choices. But holding on to anger won't help. Andrew looked at Elijah, confusion and hurt tumbling over each other. You're defending him? I'm trying to understand, Elijah said, his heart pounding. This was the moment. We have to remember the good, the bonds that pulled us together. And we need to confront the regret, but as a family. Every split, every silence, it all counts. As thunder rumbled softly overhead, something shifted within Mateo. He took a deep breath. Maybe I've spent too long running. I should have fought harder to come back. I regret that. Andrew softened, his shoulders slumping. I didn't know how to reach out to you, either. I wanted us to be okay, but I felt left behind. Elijah felt hope sparkle anew, the first threads of healing stitching their hearts. Okay, that's it. Let us promise each other right now no more running away from our past, but facing it together. Mateo nodded, his resolve strengthening. I promise. Andrew hesitated for a moment, then spoke up. Me too. I can't keep this feeling bottled up. Let us fix this. Elijah smiled, an overwhelming flood of warmth spreading through him. Let us face the storm, inside and out. As they continued rummaging through the trunk, the fragile bonds of their childhood sparkled in a corner. A shared journal. We used to write together, Mateo said, as he carefully lifted it out. Our goals, our hopes. The mood shifted, excitement mingled with anticipation. They gathered, the dim light illuminating their faces, and they began reading aloud, laughter erupting as they recalled treasured moments until the laughter suddenly turned somber. Their written words also echoed the pain, fears, and unsaid words from their past. Each sentence revealed a fragment of their friendship, every dream shattered, every promise felt unfulfilled. The air crackled with tension, but the foundation of understanding grew stronger. Words that had once been clogged with resentment began to fall like raindrops, cleansing their hearts of guilt. Then, as if nature was responding to their progress, the storm outside took a turn. Wind howled and rain poured thick against the windows. It's like the world is rooting for us, Mateo exclaimed, twinkling hope. Peeking through the haze of their struggles. Or testing us, Andrew remarked, glancing toward the door. But this time, he felt the thrill of bravery mixed with vulnerability as he faced both his brother and father. Whatever it is, we'll stand together. Elijah locked eyes with both of them, tears of relief running down his cheeks. We have something powerful here. A chance to start fresh. Moving into a huddle, they clasped hands, 3 generations of hurt about to break through. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside, the thunder resonated like a victory cry. Together, Elijah said, and as they promised to face what lay ahead, the storm outside felt lighter, quieter. They burst out of the basement into the living room, ready to fight for the relationship that once flourished. No more hiding. The darkness may still surround them, but their spirits were ignited. And in that moment, Elijah knew that the rebirth of their family had begun. Let us not let the past keep us down. The truth will free us. Together, we can rise. Hope shone through like sunlight after a heavy rain, and the journey ahead felt brighter. Now, this is your moment. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support is everything. Comment below with your feelings about this powerful ending. And please, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait, not even one more second. Your support makes all the difference.